Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome to episode 2 of... So firstly, I'm sorry for not posting for a few weeks now. School's been going on. I got my first shot of testosterone like 3 weeks ago. It's been a very exciting time, so there's been a lot. But in light of the memo that was released yesterday by the New York Times, it was leaked and it included Trump's administration talking about how they would like to sort of prevent and eradicate the possibility of any transgender person changing their gender identity or gender marker or biological sex. Even through surgery, you'd have to provide genetic testing, is what the article said, to change your gender. They want to have that passed. And that was a pretty scary thing for a lot of trans people to see, because it would mean a total erasure of their identity, basically, on a federal level. And of course, states can still choose to do whatever they do, but on a federal level, that would mean that we basically just don't have a right to ourselves, which is absurd. So I felt like I needed to talk about this, and more specifically, I wanted to talk about detransitioning, because something that I didn't talk about in the last video about why I shouldn't transition is, well, what if you regret it, right? That narrative. And I think I finally have the words to articulate why. Well, one, why it doesn't matter if I change my mind. And two, I won't change my mind. But more importantly, let's get into detransitioning. So firstly, it's at the forefront of the conversation, right? You see so many articles saying, like, well, there was this person and, they grew up a girl and they were like, oh, wait, I'm not a girl. And they really believed it. And then they changed their mind and now this person's a girl again and she made a terrible decision transitioning. Rewind. Okay, first of all, we need to analyze why she transitioned to male to begin with, right? Was it that she truly didn't feel like a girl and she felt like a man? Or was it that society was treating her poorly because she was a girl, right? And then second thing is, well, if she had the access to a non-binary narrative, would that have been more comfortable for her? If she could have just been a butch lesbian or something and gained protection from the masculinity there, would she have been happier doing that? Maybe, right? But society wasn't allowing her those options. Society was saying, man, woman, choose. Oh, I got a little intense there. My camera fell. Society was saying, man, woman, choose. And she didn't feel like a woman. And so she chose to go to the man's end, and she realized, oh God, society is treating me like a man, and I can't say that I'm trans, so they don't know that I grew up a girl, and so I'm not being honest about who I am, and this is scary, and it's hard, and men are tougher, and I'm not ready for this, right? That's society. That's not her. That's not at all an issue with her. That is an issue with the way that society is saying you need to be treated differently depending on if you're a man or a woman. That's the way that this white heteronormative culture that we live in America has decided that there are specific roles for men and women which we must fulfill. And what if you don't fulfill either of those, right? That's the non-binary narrative that a lot of people in New York take up because they're like, man, woman just doesn't work for me. Neither of them work for me. And then they choose non-binary, right? Like, that's one great resource. Two is that if you're invisible about who you are, right, because you're living in a transphobic society, and you grew up a girl, but then you decided you wanted to be a man, but people don't realize all of the history and your roots, and you can't show them baby pictures, and you're kind of scared for your safety. One of the reasons you have an issue with your being trans is because society is telling you that it's an issue. That's probably one of the central reasons. And being invisible and not having access to a truthful narrative about yourself to other people, of course that feels isolating. Of course that's depressing. Of course someone would detransition if they've been told that their being a trans man is invalid or their being a trans woman is invalid. I probably would too if I grew up in the 60s or if I grew up in a less conservative or less liberal place than New York. But I mean, I don't want to get too... I'll talk about me in a little bit, right? But this is first a rant. This is a political rant. Secondly is that if you're going into transitioning with internalized misogyny, right? You grow up a girl and you don't acknowledge in your head that one of the reasons you want to be a man is because you look down on women, then eventually you're going to realize, oh wait, being a man includes, in this culture, rejecting women, and that feels really dishonest to myself. Of course you're going to feel lousy about that too. And I think before anyone should transition, they should evaluate gender roles and think about, like, hey, am I doing this because I think that being a woman is inferior? Or, you know, whatever. Am I doing this to gain ranks in society? Because that shouldn't be the reason one transitions. One should transition because they truly just don't feel like the body they have fits them. And for a male to female, it's a little bit different because you have to step down in society. That's kind of harder. But before anyone transitions, basically, I think they should evaluate their internalized misogyny and questioning of gender, right? So before I decided to come out as trans, something that I kept asking myself was like, why do I want to be a man, right? Like, do I see being a man as somehow being stronger than a woman? Because hell no. My mom's one of the strongest women I know, one of the strongest people I know. I don't care about gender. I mean, there are so many powerful women that I know. Why would I want to disband from womanhood? And I sort of realized it's because I'm not saying that I'm stronger. I admire women. I admire women so much. Someone told me recently that they think something intrinsic to femininity is having to stand up for what you believe in, and I have never resonated so hard with something. I was like, oh my god, you're right. That is all the women I know. They are, like, so powerful in their beliefs. Even if they're quiet about it, they're good about their beliefs. They just, you know, being a woman includes having a moral compass and being strong. And I'm not saying that being a man is somehow better or less. I personally just I'm weak. I don't know. I'm weaker than women. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just not a woman. But anyway, that's that. Final thing on detransitioning, and this one's a little bit more tender. So I'm sorry about that. Is that women who transition to male after a sexual assault sometimes detransition, right? Because they realize, oh, I didn't have an issue with my body. I had an issue with what happened to my body. And that association is what pushes them to transition. And I do think that's also, you know, before anyone changes their body, they should evaluate what about their body exactly they have issues with, right? So that's that. But I don't want to get too far into that because that's not my place to talk about. And then last thing, I guess, is that we keep talking about detransitioning, and that's a big argument against transgenderism. But slow down a second, right? Like, one is that detransitioning is not very many trans people. I mean, it's just not very many trans people's narrative. It's a rare occurrence for someone to be like, oh, wait, actually, JK, I'm going back on this, right? If you talk to the trans people who have successful narratives, they're really happy, and there are so many trans people who are really glad with their decision. It's just that the detransitioners are at the forefront of the conversation by cis people saying this is why you shouldn't transition. There are two flaws with that argument. One is that it's isolating facts that the anti-trans people want to use as an argument against transgenderism. Two is that so what? Two is so what? So what if I change my mind one day? I mean, shit, I'm not saying that I'm going to stay on testosterone for the rest of my life. I might not. I might only be on it for like 2 years or 20 years or 10 years. I don't know. I just know that at this point in my life, I want to look like a man. I want a man's body. It's really that simple. It's that simple. And if I change my mind about that, who cares? A lot of people who detransition realize, oh, actually I'm not a trans man, I'm just a radical feminist because people are treating women like shit and that's not fair. And I think that's a great thing to learn. I mean, it probably sucks in the process to be like, oh, what have I done to my body? But also they learn something invaluable from it. And if you talk to detransitioners, I bet a lot of them would say, no, I don't regret my transition. I regret not learning the things that I learned sooner. So, there we go. At the rally last night, it was so empowering. It was so incredible to see people like me saying, no, we are here, we are trans, and we are proud, and you're not going to erase us, because we are so sure in our identities, and we are so positive of who we are, and we are such a demographic that is present that we're not going to be erased. That was so powerful. One of the speakers grew up in the Philippines, and they talked about how one of the things that they learned about the Philippines was that pre-white colonialism, before the white colonialists from America came in, okay, they had intergender people just living, just doing shit, just part of society. Men and women pretty much equal. Women could gain as much land and run families the same way that men could. It was just people living people. And then white colonialists came in and were like, no, heteronormativity is where it's at. And these white men who were afraid of losing their power stole the power from the intergender people and erased them because they were afraid of the threat. And I don't think that the reintroduction in America, or the outspokenness of trans people, is at all a threat to anyone. I think we're just trying to gain rank so that we can be equal. I mean, I just want equality in society. I want everyone to have equal opportunity and access. And it's that simple. In an ideal world, we just let people do what we want to do. Why is it so politicized? That's all I got. I'm sorry this has been a whole 11-minute rant. I'm feeling a lot of feelings. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you all are doing great. We'll talk more personally another time, but for now, take care.